Welcome to the City of Bakersfield Planning Commission meeting. This television broadcast is brought to you by the local cable companies, the County of Kern, and the City of Bakersfield. You can watch the rebroadcast of this meeting Saturday at 7 p.m. and Sunday at 10 a.m. The agenda for this meeting can be downloaded at www.bakersfieldcity.us. Presiding over this evening's meeting, Chair Daniel Cater.
Good evening. It's my pleasure to call to order the October 17th, 2024 Planning Commission meeting. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll? Here.
Sorry. Vice Chair Strickland, Commissioner Bashir Tosh, Commissioner Biddle. Here. Commissioner Kaur. Here. Commissioner Coman.
Here.
Commissioner Neal.
Here.
Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Pledge of Allegiance.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all for attending tonight's Planning Commission meeting. This commission provides an opportunity for public participation in the development process throughout the city of Bakersfield. The Planning Commission considers a wide variety of projects, including subdivision maps, zone changes, general plan amendments, and much more. When applications are received, the City Planning Division analyzes the request. Planning staff will present the facts about the project along with their recommendation to the Commission, who will approve an item or make a recommendation as appropriate. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Public statements.
Please note, public statements are now received at different times depending on the item. I will call on Madam Clerk to call for public statements at the appropriate time, so please listen carefully for the correct time to speak.
Agenda item 3A, public statements.
Does anyone in the audience wish to address the commission regarding items listed on tonight's agenda? Please note, if you are here for item 6A, now is not the time to speak. You will be given an opportunity to speak at a later time.
Non-agenda item 3B, public statements.
Does anyone in the audience wish to address the commission regarding items not listed on tonight's agenda? If so, please come forward and state your name. Seeing no speakers, Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Agenda item 4, consent calendar items.
Please note all matters listed under the consent items do not require a public hearing and will be enacted by a single motion. There will be no separate discussion of said items unless staff or a commissioner request specific items be discussed and or removed for separate action. May I get a motion approving consent item 4A?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Biddle. May I have a second?
I'll second it.
Commissioner Coman. Commissioners, please cast your votes.
Motion passes with Vice Chair Strickland and Commissioner Bashir Tosh absent.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Agenda item 5, consent public hearing items.
Now is the time for consent public hearing items. Please note,
I was just asking the clerk to put up the other slide, if she would, the other slideshow presentation.
okay? We're good? Thank you. If the item is not removed by a commissioner, staff, or a member of the public, the commission will vote on all items in a single motion without further comment. If an item is removed, it will be placed at the end of the non-consent public hearing items. So at this time, I would like to open all of the consent public hearing items. Does any member of the public wish to remove a consent public hearing item? Seeing no members of the public, does any commissioner or staff wish to remove a consent public hearing item? Seeing no staff or commissioners. At this time, the consent public hearing item 5A is now closed. May I get a motion to adopt staff's recommendation on the consent public hearing item, incorporating all staff memorandum and revised staff recommendations?
So moved.
Yeah.
Commissioner Neal, and a second from Commissioner Coleman.
Sure.
All right, commissioners, please cast your votes.
Motion passes with Vice Chair Strickland and Commissioner Bashir Tosh absent.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Agenda item 6, non-consent public hearing items.
Now is the time for non-consent public hearing items. Before we begin, I would like to explain how the hearing will be conducted. Staff will first give a report, then those in favor of the project will have an opportunity to speak. Those in opposition to the project will be able to speak after all of those in favor have spoken. Each side will be given a 5-minute total time to provide rebuttal comments. Individual speakers may ask questions during their statements, but the questions will not be answered until the public hearing on that item is closed. If preferred, written comments may be given to the clerk, who will provide copies to the commission. Please remember to be respectful of others participating in the hearing by not repeating the remarks of previous speakers and presenting any new comments or thoughts in a concise and clear way. Mr. Johnson, would you please provide us your staff report?
Yes, thank you. Good evening, commissioners, members of the audience. This is a request for a conditional use permit to allow a CRV recycling facility within a Cal Recycle convenience zone. The project site is near the intersection of State Routes 99 and 58. More specifically, the location is at the northeast corner of Brundage Lane and Myrtle Street. The recycling facility is located on a portion of a quarter-acre parcel that is currently developed with a liquor store. The facility will occupy approximately 750 square feet within the northern portion of the parcel and contain a 176 square foot metal storage container. Outside this area, an additional 100 square feet will be used for a portable canopy and table for the reception of recycling materials. Generator will also be available on site. Operations are 7 days a week with 1 employee on site. It will be open Monday through Saturday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., and Sundays, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. To provide background on this recycling operation, Cal Recycle certified the facility to operate in May 2024. It is relevant to note that Cal Recycle does not require any documentation from the local jurisdiction before certifying a facility. In contrast, the city always consults with Cal Recycle to verify if a proposed facility is located in a Cal Recycle convenience zone, and I'll provide more information on that later in my presentation. In June, a conditional use permit application was submitted. In August, a complaint was filed with city code enforcement. In that same month, staff met with the operator and representative to get an update on submitting the requested documentation so a hearing could be set to consider the conditional use permit. In September, the facility ceased operating. Before 2019, recycling facilities only required a conditional use permit if it was located outside a convenience zone. It was permitted by right and could not be denied if it was located within a convenience zone. Due to frequent community complaints with noise, odor, rodents, aesthetics, City Council made a referral in March 2018 for staff to review the permitting of recycling centers. Proposed amendments were brought to your commission for consideration in September 2018 that would require a conditional use permit for recycling operations in all commercial zones if located within a convenience zone. Additionally, recycling facilities would continue to be allowed by right if located in an industrial zone and within a convenience zone. Any recycling facility outside a convenience zone would be prohibited. This was considered by City Council in October 2018, at which time they mandated a conditional use permit in all industrial zones as well, with the exception of the M3 or heavy industrial zone where it would be prohibited. In November 2018, your commission reviewed the changes and City Council had their second read, and the changes took effect December 2018. The zone classification alignment in this area is reflective of a time when hand-drawn maps and digital maps did not always sync. As shown on the left screenshot, the subject parcel is Zone C1, or Neighborhood Commercial, which allows a recycling center with a conditional use permit. However, the parcel to the north is split zoned, where a portion is Zone C1 and R1, or single family. In comparison, the general plan designation on the right aligns with the parcel lines where the zoning actually should be. If the parcel to the north had requested a planning permit, staff would have corrected this mapping layer to accurately reflect the zoning boundary. However, since this error was not identified until the subject parcel submitted for a planning review, staff will recognize that parcel as split zoning, so therefore the northern area of this subject site is zoned C1. I point this out for two reasons. First, if the zone classification boundary was displayed accurately, the recycling operation and metal storage container would not be allowed in the rear yard setback as currently proposed. Second, your commission recently considered the Brundage Lane focus area as part of the land use alternatives. The preferred alternative was to change this parcel and others along Brundage Lane corridor to a mixed-use designation. That designation would continue to allow for a recycling facility with the proper permits. In other words, if the recycling facility was approved tonight, it would not create a conflict with the proposed mixed-use designation. When applying for a conditional use permit, the municipal code requires that the application includes sufficient information to determine whether the proposed project is consistent with the general plan, the zoning ordinance, and meets the requirements of the California Environmental Quality Act. The municipal code also allows the planning director to require the submittal of any information necessary to ensure the project can be adequately evaluated. For this project, staff considered the proximity to sensitive receptors with a single-family home approximately 35 feet to the north, a fourplex 43 feet to the northeast, and a detached garage located 6 feet from the metal storage container, only separated by a 6-foot-tall block wall. Although that is currently a garage, the state allows for unimpeded conversions of detached garages to accessory dwelling units. All things considered, staff requested an odor analysis and noise analysis to ensure consistency with zoning and environmental regulations. When staff met with the operator and the representative in August, they declined to submit these analyses, citing cost concerns. They were advised that a favorable recommendation could not be provided because the project could not be adequately evaluated. A refund of any remaining processing fees was offered if they wanted to withdraw their application. They requested the project be set for consideration by the Planning Commission without this additional information. The next few slides will describe the CRV program and the convenience zone. Cal Recycle is the administrating agency for the CRV program. This program includes specific provisions for supermarkets to provide recycling opportunities within a certain distance of where they sell recycling containers. Not every store that sells CRV containers is a supermarket. A supermarket must have a gross annual sale of $2 million or more, among other criteria you see listed there. Once identified as a supermarket, Cal Recycle establishes a 1-mile radius known as a convenience zone. Within this zone, the supermarket must either redeem CRV containers on site, which is not typical for urban supermarkets for the same reasons that the City Council had concerns with recycling operations, or they can pay an in-lieu fee, or a private recycler certified by Cal Recycle can redeem CRV containers within the convenience zone, which is primarily what we see is private recycling operations within a convenience zone. For this project, the Albertsons on Brundage Lane is the supermarket that establishes the 1-mile convenience zone. Within this zone, there is already a recycling operation established on Union Avenue. Stop and recycle operation was permitted prior to the new ordinance taking effect. When it was permitted in 2018, the convenience zone radius was only a half mile, and the operation was serving the Food Max supermarket on Union Avenue. When Cal Recycle increased the distance to 1 mile in 2023, the Stop and Recycle now serves 2 convenience zones. A benefit for recycling operations within a convenience zone are the Cal Recycle handling fees. While only a subsidy and not to be considered an expectation, the fee provides an incentive for the convenient redemption of empty beverage containers. Only one operator can receive the handling fees, and if a second operator opens within the same convenience zone, then no one receives handling fees. The current rate Cal Recycle pays is approximately $1 for every 86 containers, which is an increase from last year where the handling fee was $1 for every 180 containers. City Council periodically revisits the topic of metal storage containers. The last referral was in 2020, where it was determined that the current policy should remain. That policy states that placement of metal storage containers, except for emergency purposes or in conjunction with construction projects, may negatively impact aesthetics of neighborhoods in which they are placed or discourage investment in permanent improvements in such neighborhoods. One of the 14 standards for metal storage containers is that they shall be screened so that they are not visible from public streets. There was a memorandum distributed this past Monday bringing attention to how the applicant intends to screen the metal storage containers. As shown in the top picture, they will use a design similar to the wrought iron fence with screening panels that is currently installed across the street from the recycling center. However, they are only requesting to install at a height of 6 feet in keeping with the 6-foot-tall block wall on the property boundary. The proposed 6-foot screening for the 8-foot container leaves 2 feet visible, which is inconsistent with city code. Based on the approximate 2,600 square foot liquor store, 13 parking spaces are required and currently provided. However, there are concerns about parking and site layout as the recycling operation may encroach into the liquor store's parking spaces, creating potential safety and traffic issues. Existing recycling operations that are located in parking lots are typically situated in large commercial lots, not small parking lots with a depth of 37 feet. Adding the 10-foot by 10-foot canopy and the typical creeping of operations into the open area, as shown in the pictures of the other local recycling operations, it's possible this would start to encroach into parking spaces for the liquor store patrons and possibly the northern access point onto Myrtle Street. This is just a picture of the site as it was operating in August of this year. 2 findings are required in order to grant a conditional use permit. The use must be deemed essential or desirable for public convenience or welfare, and the use must align with the general plan. In consideration of these findings, staff took into account multiple aspects of the proposed operation. Although a second memorandum was prepared for this project, transmitting correspondence both in support and opposition to this specific project, as part of the comprehensive general plan update, planning staff and its consultant have done extensive public outreach over the past 3 years regarding what the public believes the city is lacking and what the public wants to see more of in terms of different types of housing, commercial uses, and industrial development. The request for more recycling facilities was never raised. Without the requested odor and noise analysis, it is unknown whether there are any impacts on surrounding sensitive receptors, or if the project could be designed in a certain way to reduce those potential impacts. For example, maybe a taller block wall would be necessary to reduce odor and noise. There's a potential for negative aesthetic impacts with the metal storage container not concealed from the street view. This impact could be further amplified if the operation extends outside the designated recycling area. The parking lot appears to be inadequately sized to support a recycling facility. This could lead to internal traffic flow issues or even pedestrian safety concerns. With mandated curbside recycling, this recycling facility may not complement the nearby residential uses. More data is needed to determine if the surrounding homeowners and renters primarily use the curbside recycling option or if they gather their CRV containers and would take those to a nearby facility. An unwanted side effect on curbside recycling days could be if individuals rummage through the bins looking for CRV containers and leave trash strewn about before walking to the next bin looking for additional containers. Additionally, there's already an existing recycling facility in this convenience zone that would be impacted by losing their handling fees. Although a second facility on the opposite side of the convenience zone, which is where the proposed facility is located, could benefit recycling efforts, the location of the proposed facility cannot be supported at this time. Additionally, City Council has targeted concerns with recycling operations on surrounding neighborhoods when they revised the municipal code. Since that time, City Code Enforcement stated there has been a downturn in the number of complaints. However, they still receive calls for the same reasons that City Council passed the ordinance. Most of the calls are associated with a select few habitual violators and recycling operations that open illegally without city approval. A common theme is the attractive nuisance of recycling facilities in proximity with the ability to purchase single bottle alcohol sales. It is staff's determination that the proposed operation has not demonstrated there will be no negative impacts or potential impacts that could be addressed through project design features or appropriate conditions that would allow the Commission to make the recommended findings for approval. Therefore, staff recommends denying the conditional use permit due to insufficient information and potential negative impacts. Before closing my presentation, it is also important to note the applicant was advised of staff's recommendation and chose to have the request considered by your Commission. I once again offer assistance from my planning staff to meet with the facility operator and try to identify a more suitable location. With that, I conclude my presentation and available if there are any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. The public hearing is now open. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor of the project? If so, please step to the microphone, identify yourself, and proceed.
And can we make it clear that in favor of the project means in favor of establishing a recycling facility and not in favor of staff's recommendation?
Okay, in favor of the recycling. Yes, that is very important. Yep. Thank you for clarifying. Please state your name and proceed.
Just like this?
I think yeah, I think so. Yep.
Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Sorry, a long day. Here. Okay, I'll start over. Good evening, members of the Planning Commission and planning staff. So my name is Elizabeth Hernandez. I am the architect in the project, helping Mr. And Mrs. Rivera with the facility. And we are, here to support it. And we know that we've had a long trial with actually different facilities in Brundage area with the planning staff. And so basically this one, in this scenario, we feel that we have really extensively tried to abide by everything that is per the zoning ordinance, try to appease the planning directors and the planning staff with all the requirements. And, we knew that we were going into basically a denial. And that's because, going back to the requirement for a noise study and what is the other, noise and odor study. We got a few quotes from a few companies, and they basically do this for big, commercial new shopping centers. It's a really extensive study. It was going to be on the upwards of $20,000, which is, this is a small little facility. You saw it's, a small operation. And in speaking with the planning director and the planning staff, they said that even if we provided this study, that they would still deny it. So it just seemed like it would be, one, a waste of money, but two, it's, for going forward, if we had maybe gotten a different answer, then we would have actually maybe sought out to do something else with it. And furthermore, I want to address first the zoning. So this is a C1 zone, which allows with a conditional use permit, a recycling facility. And it is unfortunate that there is a slight error in the area lines of the property adjacent to it. But regardless of that, it would still be allowed in this zone, and we would still have to go through the same process. The only difference is that it would need to be 20 feet from the fence line. It would still be able to go in this particular site. So we really feel that that argument is really not substantiated. And if they did decide to convert this garage into a accessory dwelling unit, this is all ifs, and it's kind of taking away one parcel's right by the if of another parcel. So we really feel that that also is part of kind of not a grounds for denial. Another thing with the site accessibility is that this site has 2 actual entrances, and so it has parking. If you go throughout the day, it's not a very heavily parked area, and so the location of our facility, it's basically out of the public eye. It's on the corner. It doesn't have interfere with any parking. So also we feel that that is also not an actual grounds for denial. Another area is the concern with the shopping carts and the homelessness, and we know that there was a letter of asking for denial, and the idea that homelessness and drug addiction is this is a more societal problem. This is not necessarily linked to recycling facilities. It's a little hasty to say that wherever there is a recycling facility, you're always going to have a problem. There are many other public areas that this happens throughout our city, and this is more something that I feel the city needs to work with the social services to provide more programs for homelessness and for aiding in this kind of issues. And so I do want to say that our client has been really good about addressing some of the concerns that might come up, because we have done this a few other times through us trying to do this through a CUP. Basically, he put in, and if you saw maybe in the agenda that you have, he has a pest control he has a contract with Western Exterminator Pest Control for them to come into the site and, basically maintain it. He has also done a parking lot maintenance contract with somebody who comes and washes the parking lot. Also, he has contracted with somebody that's going to pick up the shopping carts if there are any and return them to their respective facilities. So basically, he has really tried to go up and above for whatever is needed for a recycling center in a community like this. And I mean, for now, thank you for your time, and and I appreciate your your recommendation to address this and pass this.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the audience who wish to speak in favor of the project?
Hi, good evening. I don't have much to say, but
Could you state your name before
I'm
beginning?
sorry. My name is Abner Alejandro Cubias Rivera, and we're basically the developer. And like I say, I don't have much to say. I just want to say that we've been here before, and I just follow your recommendations that you told me that day. That the last one couldn't get approved because it was too close to the other place. So basically, you guys told me that that I have to go west to find a spot for a recycling place. So I just want you to keep that on mind, if it's possible. That I'm just trying to follow your word, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the audience who wish to speak in favor of the project? If so, seeing no additional speakers, is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition to the project? If so, please step to the microphone, identify yourself, and proceed. And if there are multiple speakers, you're welcome to sit in the front row behind the podium just to queue up. Please state your name and proceed.
My name is Larry Stevens. I'm a 50-year resident down the street from this proposed recycling center, retired school principal. My thoughts of the item is basically what I've seen in the 50 years, and I reside at 2731 Bank Street. I'm at the corner as you come down Myrtle. The traffic that I've seen, just foot traffic, cars, parking. Anytime you go down to the liquor store, it's, pandemonium in terms of trying to park or trying for me to get out. I usually go all the way down around Bank Street, down A to the light to go west on town. But my thoughts are we all have recycling bins. Those bins that I put out are gone through every morning about 5 a.m. by other folks trying to get the stuff out that I pay for. So there are recycling bins that we use. That should suffice. But my other concern is just the flotsam and jetsam, the homelessness, the traffic that I've seen in 50 years is quite outlandish. I had somebody coming out of my garage the other day, had a fentanyl episode. We had to call 911 to take care of her. Yesterday, an 8-year-old boy was hit by a car down by Roosevelt School. The traffic on Bank and Myrtle on any given day is ridiculous. But I think that in essence, for the Planning Commission, I agree with their denial of the permit. I see what's happening in my neighborhood. I love my neighborhood, my neighbors. But when I see the traffic that's coming through, foot traffic, homelessness, the recycling center is not a real gift to the community that I live in. And I've never spoken in front of a commission before as a speaker, but I appreciate all you do for this city, and I just want to voice my displeasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the audience wishing to speak in opposition? Please state your name and proceed.
My name's Keith Lawless. I filed a complaint with the, code enforcement on this place originally because there were people leaving trash, digging through my trash. I own 4 properties that are within 300 feet of this property, and I own commercial property on Brundage Lane. This neighborhood needs help. We do not need more of this type of business. We have smoke shops, massage parlors, liquor stores, bars, 99-cent stores. We do not need a recycling center. These people are going through our trash, spreading trash. I am in full opposition of this recycling center opening up at a liquor store that backs up to a residential neighborhood. This is C1 zoning, and I own C1 zoning on Brundage, and they never allowed me to do anything like this. And I would appreciate it being denied.
Thank you. Any other speakers in opposition? Please state your name and proceed.
My name is Joanna Reed. I own Cricklewood Nursery on Brundage Lane. It would be a block from the recycling center. We, just in the short time that it's been shut down, we have noticed a tremendous change in foot traffic. Anything that we can do to keep our customers feeling more comfortable coming into my business, I'm in favor of. This would not help that. This would add to the deterrent of people coming down into this area to shop at some place that is really a destination shop. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers in the audience or members of the audience wishing to speak in opposition? Seeing no additional speakers in opposition, does any commissioner have any questions for the public or staff on this item? Please remember this is time to ask questions and not express opinions. Commissioner Coleman.
Thank you, Chair Kueter. This question is for staff, and you may have covered it, I may have missed it. What is the normal setback that we would require between that C1 zoning and the residential zoning?
20 feet.
Okay. And can you put up again what the what our findings need to be? Okay, thank you. I have no further questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Coleman. Are there any other commissioner questions? Commissioner Kaur.
I have a question to the staff. Is this a standard that for any recycling facility that we request odor or noise study?
Again, each project is considered site-specific. An example could be is we permit outpatient clinics, sometimes with an exemption of CEQA. Some outpatient clinics, we require an environmental impact report, as you may be aware, for various reasons. So in this case, due to the proximity of the sensitive receptors and our research on other jurisdictions and potential impacts to sensitive receptors, the odor and the noise were the 2 biggest complaints that we've seen. And so we did request those studies. We have another recycling operation that will be coming forward in a month. We requested the same of that, even though they're more separated from residential than this one.
Question to the owner. As you're going to lose out on the handling fee being the facility, I think we have gone over this topic before when you were at the other location. How are you going to be operating this business then, if there's not going to be any handling fee?
I can
Yes.
answer that. Do I have to state my name again?
Please, yeah. When in doubt, please state your name. Yeah.
Elizabeth Hernandez. So the handling fee is kind of an incentive. It's not supposed to be that you rely on this. It's meant to be so whenever a grocery store pops up, that, so that you can have a recycling center kind of take care of it. So it is something like you get an extra percentage, like I forget what the amount is. I think they had it in the presentation. It's like a percentage of the cents. Yeah. And it's capped like at $2,300. And so once another recycling center goes in the same area, then basically they're not eligible anymore. And again, they still collect the fees, they still get paid. It's just that they don't get that extra kind of think of a bonus for being the only facility there.
Okay. And as I'm reading the notes, this facility was working when they ceased operation without permits?
Yes. So basically, we applied. Mr. Rivera applied for Cal Recycle, and Cal Recycle just gives you, if it's in a convenience zone, they see all your paperwork is fine and it complies with them. They just give you an operational, but you still have to get through a conditional use permit through the city. As you can see from the timeline, we applied a very long time ago, and we've been trying, submitting all this documentation and everything. And, this is his livelihood. So he started operating, and he shouldn't have. And, once he got a complaint, then he stopped and waited for this commission to hear his case.
And what's the reason of you choosing just this particular location? As Mr. Johnson has mentioned in his presentation, that city is willing to work with you guys, find more suitable location. Why do you want to be at this particular location?
The city recommended another location, which is, I think it was the corner of, it's two major streets. Yeah, Oak and Brundage. Well, it's not like you can just pop up you have to go through Cal Recycle, and it has to be within convenience zone. And in speaking with Cal Recycle, it wasn't really apparent that this was in a convenience zone. And also you have to form a contract. Not, you have a facility and somebody has to allow it. He's not the owner of the property. He's leasing from the property owner. And so it's not like you can just pop it anywhere you want. You have to have an agreement with a property owner that's willing to, go through this process with you. So it's not the recommendation, even though it was just we thought it was because it's not in proximity to a residential zone, but it's really out of the way, and we would have, he would have to actually form an agreement with whoever owns that gas station, which is not just easily done. It was, I think it's the gas, yeah, by the Dollar General store. Brundage and Oak.
Commissioner, are you, thank you, Commissioner Core. Commissioner Neal next.
Just as a follow-up, thank you, Ms. Hernandez. Do we know, maybe this is for staff, the distance between the proposed site and Brundage at Oak?
I don't know that off the top of my head.
Can we look that up? 3 blocks. Okay, all right.
3 blocks,
okay.
According to the audience.
Okay, thank you for that. Should I keep going?
Please. Yes.
I wanted to ask staff if staff could say more about alignment with the general plan as it's been amended, because if that's 3 blocks away, and I'm not recalling exactly what we did in a previous meeting about the mixed use zones, but I don't want to argue, but I'm just saying, is that the same at Oak and Brundage? Is that also going to be mixed use down between there and Myrtle and Brundage?
Yes, when we took this in front of City Council, also we have the Brundage corridor, and then although you may not be aware of, it now goes north along Oak. So this was not only extended east like the Planning Commission recommended, it was extended north along Oak all the way to California for mixed use.
So,
And mixed use would allow like an MX1 or an MX2, which allows every use in the C1 and C2. So as I kind of alluded to, a recycling operation is consistent with the mixed use designation that we looked at for our land use alternatives.
got it. So what you're saying is that not just on the Brundage corridor, but even going north on Oak, that's a potential site for a project like this.
I would have to look at the convenience zones, but the zoning and the land use as proposed, not implemented yet, but as proposed, yes, that would be appropriate.
Right. I wanted to ask staff to pull up the picture of the front view of the project. Yeah, right there. And I know there's a garage there. Have we heard from that particular property owner? Okay, okay, so the applicant is saying yes. Can you stand up, please?
Yes, I think you got this in your package.
Yes.
We had signatures from
14 people.
Yeah,
My specific
and-
question is, was that property owner one of those people?
Yes,
Okay.
so that's Mr. Joshua Johnson at 16 Myrtle Street. It's the service or the first signature.
Okay, okay, and then there's staff, can you pull up another, there was an aerial of the neighborhood, and it showed 43, I guess, feet away, a multi-unit property. What was that? A multifamily, yeah, fourplex.
It's a
Okay,
fourplex building.
what about that property? Did you get us, have we heard from that property owner? Okay, all right. Those are all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Neal. I just had a quick question. Looking at this presentation slide, for the applicant, we're seeing a lot of uncovered recycling storage. What does the typical day of operation, is recycling consistently held outside the container, or is it restricted to the interior of the container? How does the business plan, or is this, because this aerial that we're seeing shows, you know, what I imagine is recycling storage being kind of out in the open. Is that how the recycling centers work, or is it moved into the container? You can come to the mic. Please come to the microphone.
Sorry about that.
It's okay. And please state your name, I think.
Abner Alejandro Cubias Rivera.
Thank you.
So how basically is, as you can see, the pop-up tent, the 10 by 10. So you're under that tent, helping the customers with their material. Once you're done with the customers, everything goes to the side of the container, right? As you can see in the picture. But once the time has come to close, everything that you bought in a day, everything goes inside of the container. And then every other day, we go to the main company and we empty out all the material. So basically the material, it just stays in the container less than 24 hours.
So what we're seeing here, which is material outside of the container, is that in process of being moved, or is it?
Yeah, that's at the end of the day, we have to put that everything inside of the container, the storage container. We don't left nothing outside at the end of the day.
And then, thank you. And then my question for staff is regarding non-conforming zoning to occupancy. Because I know downtown has a lot of this where the use that's being used is not at all what it's zoned for. And so when a structure is being habited for residential, but it's technically in a C1 zone, basically that adjacency becomes a C1 zone. There's no acceptance of kind of current use.
I'm sorry, Chair Cater, I'm not sure I understand your question.
So zoning was overlaid to this neighborhood. It wasn't zoned and then built. And so
Correct.
we have a sliver of a commercial parcel that was overlaid onto an existing residence.
Yes.
In these older neighborhoods where you have apartments, houses, things of a residential nature that were just happened to be zoned not in conformance with their use, does the city have any special considerations for the existing history of the site of always being of a residential nature?
I mean, we would allow it as a legal non-conforming use. So, for instance, when you look at this slide, the zone classification, if that owner to the north wanted to come in and potentially say, I want to convert my garage to an ADU, we would look at this map and say, well, that's odd because this zoning goes right down the middle of your garage, as shown here, goes right down the middle of your garage. And although we recognize this as a mapping error, a lot of times, and there has been times where we will require them to go through a zone change to correct what may have been not an error on staff's part. The reason we know that this is a mapping error is because when we look at the general plan designation, now zoning used to be done a lot by hand. We have hand-drawn maps and everything, and so when those were ported over to the GIS, there's doesn't always align. And so one thing that we would probably do after this, whether it's approved or denied, is we would go back and correct the zoning layer so it doesn't occur again, so we don't run into the same issue again. But if there's a house, like let's just say that entire property to the north where the single-family home was, if it was zoned C1, we would allow that use to continue. They do have an option for an expansion of a legal non-conforming use where they could request special expansions. But if they wanted to change it from a single-family home to a multifamily home, we would have required them to go through a zone change. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And then my question, I have one more question for the applicant. Is there a reason, a site constraint, why the container was pushed to the property line and not closer to the existing commercial structure?
Again, my name is Abner Alejandro Cubillas Rivera, and then there's not a reason, just probably it was better on the other side, close to the liquor store building, but that's not a problem. If you like, or if you recommend it or move it to the other side, we can do it without problem.
We're only asking questions right now, but thank you. I appreciate the response. Okay. Seeing no additional commissioner questions. Oh, did you do the rest this week? Oh, it's all right. Commissioner Biddle.
I had a question for the applicant. How were these signatures gathered? Was it door to door? Were they people that came into the?
Again, my name is Abner Alejandro Cubillas Rivera, and we collect those signatures by knocking the doors and talking to the neighbors, explain for what those signatures are, and that's the way we got it.
Thank you. Commissioner Biddle, are there any? Okay. And then I guess I have one more question for staff, since we're in the question period. How common throughout the city of Bakersfield is it to have multiple recycling centers in the same convenience zone? I always think of these questions, and I should have asked you on Monday, but...
No, that's fine, that's fine. I will say, prior to the new ordinance going into effect, if they were in a convenience zone, it was permitted by right. So it didn't require a conditional use permit. It went through a site plan review process, and it could not be denied. So prior to when this took effect in December 2018, it was probably more common. Has there been, since the ordinance took effect, we have not brought forward a conditional use permit to add another recycling operation into a convenience zone other than Mr. Rivera's operation.
Thank you. All right, seeing no additional commissioner questions, we will move on to the rebuttal portion of the public hearing. We started with those in favor of the project. So I will open up a rebuttal period for those in favor of the project. Is there anyone who wishes to speak to provide a rebuttal on this item? If so, please be prepared to step to the podium. Please note each side will have a 5-minute total time. So make your comments succinctly without repeating the remarks of previous speakers to make sure everyone who wishes to speak will have an opportunity to do so. With that, I will open the rebuttal period to those in favor of the project.
Hello again, this is Elizabeth Hernandez, and I think I just want to address the people that are here in opposition. And, regarding the homeless problem issue, again, I really want to iterate that that is happening in our city, regardless of, a center like this being implemented. Also, I don't want to, I don't want to forget about the people who actually use this recycling centers who are not homeless, that they do, not everybody puts their stuff in the blue can and lets it be and taken over by the city. There are so many people that in communities that actually use this as extra income, that they actually like to, recycle. You still use their blue can for the other stuff that you need to recycle, but they like to collect their CRV, which is, part of a fee that you paid when you purchased this containers. So I just want to keep that in mind, that it's not only, I know that sometimes we get really afraid of the homeless population and the drug abuse and everything, but that happens throughout our city, and it should be addressed in other means than denying these types of facilities, because sometimes these are for the general public, and there are many people, I know many of them, that do use these facilities to recycle their actual containers, and so just wanted to give that, everybody that thought. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other rebuttal comments in support? Okay, seeing none, I will now close the rebuttal. Ms.
Sorry,
King?
did you say against? Did you call the people that
Not
were
yet.
against? Okay.
Yeah, I'm closing the in support.
You said close, and I got concerned.
Oh yeah, not the hearing, just the favor. Maybe I should choose a better word. I will now move to those who wish to provide rebuttal comments in opposition to the project. Please remember this is a 5-minute total time, so if you'd like to make rebuttal comments, I invite you to come to the front row, and the clock will begin with our first speaker. Please state your name again.
Keith Lawless.
Thank you.
The homeless issue is a huge issue, and this is just going to make it worse. They go through my trash, they spread it. I've had 2 cars stolen. It's like I said, this neighborhood needs help. We do not need any more businesses like this in our neighborhood. I've lived there since 1995. I've paid off all my property, and I keep fighting this way back since Sue Benham was city council. I don't want to move. I'd like this thing to be closed out with a denial. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers providing rebuttal comments in opposition to the project?
Again, my name's Larry Stevens. I reside at the end of Myrtle Street, Myrtle and Bank. And the basic issue is, like the gentleman said, it's just the foot traffic, the traffic. Sure, homelessness is all over Bakersfield. We have more than our share than anyone else, trust me. And the people, the safety of those of us that live there, that go out on our street or take a bin and almost get hit by a car, and just the traffic on Brundage alone as they come down Myrtle, or as I spoke before, Bank and stuff like that. It's an issue that needs to be addressed. With the addition of a recycle center down there, that's just more traffic, and that's more problems in the neighborhood. And I've been there 50 years, folks, and I can tell you, it's not easy. Like the gentleman said, we've got a great neighborhood, great homes. We love where we live, but the addition of this, in addition to what's always has gone on, is crazy. I mean, if you look at a 1 mile radius in terms of homeless and breaking ins and vandalism and cars and things like that. I don't know if staff's done that, but it's huge. And I again, as a resident, please deny this.
Joanna Reed. As a business owner, my concern is the traffic going up and down the street from people carrying their bags full of cans or bottles for recycling. That just adds to more of the trash and disruption for my business, that people will say to me, I would feel more comfortable if these people weren't up and down the street. All I can see is with the recycling center, it will cause more people with a grocery cart full of cans or a plastic bag over their shoulder going down to the recycling center. I just think it's something we don't need in our neighborhood. And I've been there 34 years, and we haven't had this kind of an issue before. Thank you.
Thank you all. Are there any other speakers wishing to provide rebuttal in opposition? Seeing no additional speakers in opposition, I will now close the public hearing and return the item to the commission for comment and action. Commissioner Coleman.
Thank you, Chair Keeter. The reason that the council requested staff to investigate these issues was because this is that's the number one complaint that council people get, is these recycle centers. And so they really tried to create a guideline that try to satisfy the people that had objected to them, but also allowed for the fact that, we do need them in some areas. For me, I have an issue with the proximity to the residential and the fact that there's already a recycle center serving that convenience zone. I don't think that putting a I'm looking at the Brundage Lane in total and what we want the Brundage Lane corridor to be in the future. And I don't believe that installing a recycling center on Brundage meets that objective standard that we're setting for that Brundage Lane corridor. And lastly, I don't think that, the question was whether it was essential or desirable. And I don't think it's essential for that. We've already established it's not essential because there's another one in serving that convenience zone. And it's certainly, in my mind, not desirable. So at some point, I would make a motion to accept the staff's recommendation. That's the end of my comments. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Thank you, Commissioner Coleman. Are there any other commissioners wishing to? Commissioner Neal.
I just want to thank the community members that showed up to speak and also the applicant for going through this process yet again. I'm looking at this and I have a lot of trouble with it because I'm particularly moved when someone is doing something that's illegal and then they come to the light and they try to go through our processes and they try to still bring their vision for business to light and do so in accordance with our policies and procedures. And so I want to commend the applicant for doing that and going through this process yet again. Where I have trouble with this is number one, there's already another establishment in the same convenience zone on the same street on Brundage. Is it not on Brundage? Further down Brundage? On Union, sorry. And so I have trouble with that. I do have trouble with the adjacency to the residential property, and that's why I asked some questions about if you turned that corner on Oak and Brundage, where you're not abutting up against residential property. Is that a possibility for a different proposal or location? I have issues with the fact that you continue to pay fees again every time you try this again, because this is a small business. This is not a big business. It's not a established business with 30-something years. And I have an issue when we favor one type of business over another, just because it's always been there. Because I have issues with the history of the way we've done business and who we've allowed to participate and not. So, saying all of that, I wish I could support your application, but I can't, okay? And I just want to acknowledge your effort to come forward and go through the process. I would like to recommend that you continue to work with staff, because I do want to see your vision for this vision come true and earn the city stamp of approval. But maybe this area that you really want to be in is just not in alignment with the vision for what the city has, and also with the policies, and the things that the city favors in terms of, hopefully you can put it somewhere where you won't have neighbors showing up to complain about traffic and trash, because that's a big issue in that area, and I know that very, very closely. Digging through trash, stealing things, parking, people running through lights and stop signs and all sorts of things. So I know this is very long-winded, but this is one of those issues of the tragedy of the commons where we all have to share property. We do. In the past, certain people got rights to property and other people didn't. But now, there are objective processes that you can go through, but you have to, and you've done that. You've gone through the process, even though you violated it. You've come back through the process. I would encourage you to work more closely with staff to try to figure out a better location for the business that's in more of a alignment with where we're headed as a city, and that's not affecting residential, because we have a really big emphasis on residential housing right now. And so anything that really impacts that is very sensitive, right? So let's try to work around that. And that's pretty much all I have to say. I just want to thank you for coming through the process. I know it's expensive, okay? And I know you spent a lot of money on your architect, unless she volunteered. It's not cheap, and I just want to recognize that.
Thank you, Commissioner Neal. Any other commissioner comments?
I just want to reiterate what Commissioner Neal said. I do appreciate you coming back and trying yet again to work with staff, but if you could, please work closer with them. They are here to give us guidance and to help us not waste money and fees, because we don't want to make our money that way. We want to make it through our economy getting better. I drove that area today. I went and parked. I walked around. That street is just too tight, and it is just not a good location. So I don't want you to walk away thinking we don't want your recycling center. We just have to find the right location for this type of business. So thank you for your time today and coming back out.
Thank you, Commissioner Biddle. I just want to thank the applicant. I want to thank the neighbors that came out. I think this is the, I remember the applicant. I think we were all here not too long ago talking about a site down the street. And I just, to me, I would say in my working with staff, they are very forthright in their recommendations and in that they see. I think to me, as a commissioner, I'm not a huge fan of subjective setbacks, because I feel like great spaces can be created in small adjacencies. When we talk about uses like recycling centers, there's a very active presence of potential nuisances, be it the presence of trash, bringing pests, the smell, the noise. And to me, I think it's the reason a conditional use process exists is that proof of desirability and that it's really aligning with the needs of this neighborhood. And I think I just think that adjacency to the neighborhood grid of a neighborhood that has held on when its main commercial corridor, with a few exceptions, has really struggled. I think to me, as a city, we need to be very thoughtful in not just overlaying a zoning that allows use to be, someone to come in and just magically transform the corridor, but look at ways that we're really saying we want to support these older neighborhoods, and we want to make sure that that we are not treating this corridor different than we would treat 21st Street or Grand Island. That we are seeing the value of neighborhoods that have a strong identity and that have kept together. And I think, to me, seeing these recycling centers kind of more like think about the one on Stockdale Highway next to Town and Country, or the Union that is in the convenience zone. They all have an adjacency to a neighborhood, but they're also a little bit distant from the direct impact of the neighborhood grid, of the neighborhood street. And so to me, I think that this just, like the fact that zoning was not very thoughtfully overlaid to this neighborhood, and therefore it's commercial adjacent, feels a little bit hard to judge when I'm looking at the site plan and seeing a residential basically abutting the container. And so I think, I guess to me, the one thing I would like to say is that I think as staff, I think that I appreciate the effort of working with staff. This application answered a lot of the questions that we had in the previous site. And so I would want to encourage that, should you go forward in finding that perfect site, that staff just be really earnest to try to find a site that meets this need, because I think this is an applicant that has been very honest, that has been very upfront, that through letters of support is meeting the needs of a community. It's just weighing those impacts and finding that site that doesn't put too much of a burden on its adjacent neighbors. So with that, any commissioners wanting to make the motion?
Yeah, if you don't mind. First of all, I wanted to thank Commissioner Neal and Commissioner Biddle and Commissioner Cater also, because you guys are much more eloquent than I am, and to address the applicant, I appreciate that, because it is important that the applicant understand that we respect them and want them to be successful. That said, I'm going to make a motion to accept staff's recommendation regarding conditional use permit 24-0390. So accept the staff recommendations entirely. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Coleman. May I have a second?
I'll second that.
Commissioner Biddle. Commissioners, please cast your votes. And we're going to vote yes is staff's recommendation.
A vote yes would be to deny the project. Thank you for that clarification.
Just thought I would clarify. Yeah. We don't do well on double negatives. So, yeah.
Motion passes to deny CUP 24-0390 with Vice Chair Strickland and Commissioner Bashir Tosh absent.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, next item.
Sure,
oh, do you want to read please read the appeals? Yep.
So this decision is appealable to City Council. Decisions of the Commission are subject to appeal by any person that believes they are adversely affected The appeal must be filed in writing within 10 days from the date of the Commission's decision. The appeal must be addressed to the City Council and include the appellant's interest in or relationship to the project, identify the decision appealed, and address facts and reasons why the Commission's decision should not be upheld.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Now, Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Agenda item 7, communications.
Does staff have any communication items?
We do have meetings in November. We are scheduled for both meetings in November. It does appear the first meeting in December will likely be canceled, but we do have 2 meetings with the next one November 7th.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Agenda item 8, commission comments.
Does any commissioner have any comments? Closing remarks? Oh, Commissioner Coleman. That's right.
I want to recognize some of the students in the audience tonight from Bakersfield College that came to observe. Oftentimes we go through these and everything's on consent calendar and they don't really get to see the process. So I hope that you learned something from tonight's hearing, that everybody is given an opportunity to speak and we hear all sides before ever making a decision. So thank you for coming tonight. The other item I wanted to mention was that, excuse me, I just came back from California League of Cities annual meeting in Long Beach. And I wanted to share this with the other commissioners because one of the items that I participated in was the resolution committee, and we voted on a resolution that the League of Cities is hoping to bring to the state legislature. That has to do with the conflicts between what the requirements are for city officials and what the requirements are for state officials. For example, the requirements of the Brown Act apply codes of conduct on the method, manner, and timing of communications by members of city and local governments. But it does not apply to state officials. And so the resolution that is being proposed by the League of Cities is to propose to the legislature that the California state legislature shall not enact and the governor shall not approve any law or regulation that applies solely to elected officials of California cities and counties, unless such law or regulation also applies equally to members of the California State Assembly and Senate after a reconciliation process has been completed. This prohibition shall not apply to laws or regulations affecting the inherent powers of the legislative branch to adopt matters of statewide concern. And so this is likely to be ratified tomorrow at the closing meeting of the California League of Cities, and will be presented to the California legislature. It's not binding on them, but it's a message to the legislature that do as you say, or give as you get. So I wanted to share that with you, that the League of Cities is looking out for local cities and city officials, and by appointment we are officials. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for making it back. I think, wasn't your meeting today?
What's that?
Thank you for making it back. Wasn't your meeting today?
Yeah, I just left at 2:15. I left Long Beach, so just barely got back.
This is hot off the press. Yeah, Thank you, Commissioner Coleman. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Agenda item 9, adjournment.
This meeting is adjourned at 6:46. Have a great evening.